Welcome to the Chrissie Mayr podcast. I'm your host, Chrissie Mayr. You can listen on iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, any place fine podcasts are sold. If you like what you hear, leave a kindly review on iTunes with 5 stars or so. And I would appreciate that so much. I want to do a shout out to this podcast sponsor, Nickel City Cigars. Yes, I'm over 21. Go to nickelcitycigars.com. They have a really cool kind of artisanal selection of cigars. This is a small business. This is a veteran-owned business operating out of Buffalo, New York. That's upstate New York. And these guys are so cool. I did a stand-up show at their club last Saturday. It was so much fun. Met a lot of really great fans, a lot of great beards, as you can imagine, a lot of great tattoos. Just, a lot of great men hang out at cigar clubs. If you're like a single woman listening, go hang out at a cigar club. Like whether the smoke bothers you or not, like that's where all the men are. Just letting you know. They're hanging out at Nickel City Cigars. Check them out. Go to nickelcitycigars.com. Buy anything from their website and use promo code CMP. I think you get 10 or 15% off. So go ahead and support this veteran-owned business. Also, I met the owner's wife, who is super hot. But that's neither here nor there. I have some comedy shows coming up. Guys, I will be in Texas in September 8th to be exact. I will be at the Cap City Comedy Club on September 8th. Boom, here's my schedule. Thursday, September 8th at Cap City. Then I'll be headlining in Philly Wednesday, September 14th at the Helium Comedy Club. Then I'm doing 2 shows in Springfield, New Jersey at Scotty's Comedy Cove. Friday, September 16th and Saturday, September 17th. These 2 shows will be with Kevin Dombrowski. Very funny dude. Then I'm heading to New Orleans, September 30th and October 1st. 4 shows at the Comedy House, New Orleans. So check it out. Gonna be a lot of drinking in the street before those shows. Then we're doing our next compound, Comedians of the Compound at the Orlando Improv. I was trying to say Content House and Comedians of the Compound at the same time, and I garbled it. So we're doing Comedians of the Compound at the Orlando Improv on Thursday, October 27th. Then we are kicking off our second Content House from Orlando, Florida. We're doing a 48-hour live stream following directly after this show. So tune in, come to this show, come hang. It'll be myself, Gino Bisconti, Anthony Cumia, Lila Hart, maybe a couple more special guests. You can get tickets for all these shows on my website, chrissiemayr.com. Support these clubs. Come on out. Have a lol. All that good stuff. Yes, okay. I'm so excited to have this girl on because I feel like we are kindred spirits, and I always enjoy meeting women who were like formerly leftist or formerly feminist, and it's always nice to compare and contrast like our way through the weeds to reality, to the light. So I'm so excited to have her here today. She runs a YouTube channel called The Real Femme Sapien, where she talks about femininity, relationships, growth. She actually coaches women, which we need more of. I mean, there's so many like life coaches and self-help books. My bookshelf is literally covered in them. But this gal is the real deal. Welcome to the show, Aly Drummond. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I am so happy you're here. We can go for an hour if you have another thing. That's totally fine. I usually like to go between like an hour and an hour and a half, like whatever in there
That sounds good to me. That's perfect.
works for you. I'm gonna pull up your handle on the bottom where people can find you. So, Aly, you do a lot of really great YouTube videos. I want to talk a little bit about your background because I feel like you are uniquely qualified to talk about a lot of issues that are popping up today because you have a history with the military. You have a history with going to college and kind of being woke indoctrinated like myself. You are a Latin X person.
Latinx,
You
yes.
are Latina.
Mhm.
So, very cool. Alright, so give me a little bit of the background, like, how you sort of like, your journey of how you came to be, I guess you went to college, you really wanted to be, correct me if I'm wrong, you did the military first at
Mhm.
19,
Yes.
and then, afterwards went to college, really wanted to be a social worker,
Mhm.
and in one of your videos, you said college was the biggest disappointment of your life, which I
Mhm.
kind of agree for me too, like, when I look back at all the money my parents spent, I'm like, "I didn't get very much out of it." Like,
Mhm.
I didn't even get any STDs, like, I really didn't get much out of it. So, yeah, give
Mhm.
me a little bit of your sense of how you were kind of how the bubble was popped for you on, I guess, the college experience specifically.
Well, so I joined the army when I was 19. I tried to get into college when I was 18, and I ended up not doing well one semester. I withdrew, and then I ended up not doing well another semester. But that semester, I got my first B that I'd ever gotten in my life. So I just ended up joining the army. I was like, I can't figure out what I want to do with my life. So I figured that Uncle Sam would just tell me what I should do with my life. And I ended up doing that, but mostly I was just leaving really rough circumstances. So we served the nation, I guess, to get my GI Bill in order to go to school and to be debt free. But I had a scholarship before anyway. But this weird thing happens in the military where they convince you that you're really special, that you're less than half of 1% that serves. And that is true. But they tell you that to keep you there. That way you think, oh, I need to stay. This is where I belong. I ended up getting out and going to college, and I found out that literally nobody cares that you're a veteran, actually. Like, you're just like everyone else. And that was a culture
Wow.
shock for me that kind of hit me in the face.
I
Mhm.
think older people care. I think young people and the world of academia kind of doesn't care, but I find when you get older and you're in the working world more and you see more of the country, people do appreciate it.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, people that understand that it's a hard, thankless job will say thank you. So I get out and I stay in Kansas. I start going to Kansas State University. I love living in Kansas, by the way. Everybody should live out here. Everybody should live out here. It's so beautiful. Like, there's so many grasslands and there's good beef and everybody has a gun.
Ooh,
But
yes. Okay.
Mhm. And I started going to school because I wanted to help my community. I grew up in a lower socioeconomic status, single mother home. It was very abusive. So I figured, well, like, if I'm going to help people, let me get into social work. But when I got there, I just realized how incompetent so many of the students were. Like, it was primarily white students coming from two-parent backgrounds whose parents were paying for their education. And they were basically, and I don't like to bring race into it, but we're talking about wokeism. So we're talking about leftists, and like, there is a little bit of race involved. So, from my impression, going there as a what would be considered now a conservative Latina and getting like all the pushback in the world because I was the wrong minority, I wasn't thinking correctly. Social work appeared to me to be white people teaching other white people how to deal with brown people. And I knew that this,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what it seems like every girlfriend I knew in college who majored like, to become a social worker,
Mhm.
that was the vibe, two-parent household, like, even though, yeah, okay, like, maybe
Mhm.
their parents got divorced, like, a little bit later,
Mhm.
but it very much seems like white people telling other white people how to deal with minorities, which seems kind of a little, entitled, condescending, arrogant, all the things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's how I felt. I was like, why do you guys keep telling me I'm repressed? Like, I feel fine. I'm a differently abled Latina veteran. I've done almost everything that I wanted to do in life. I even have a successful YouTube channel right now. I'm married. I got a house. These people keep trying to tell me I'm oppressed. I'm like, shut up. Let me decide if I'm oppressed. So I left the social work program. I called myself an academic refugee, and I ended up going to the anthropology department, and I thought that I was going to escape wokeism. That was very naive of me. I was like, well, this seems pretty intellectual. And it's true. Like, there's a STEM component to anthropology, like things like archaeology, or it's as STEM as you want it to be, is my point. And then it's also like as cultural and social as you want it to be. Then I got to anthropology, and it was the same thing. Like, my perspective was wrong because I was a brown woman and I didn't believe this far left narrative, this progressivist agenda, because I think that progressivist agenda actually hurts minority children. But they would know that if they grew up in the same neighborhoods that I did. Like, it's all lower socioeconomic status. If people can say, that it's I don't know, what do people blame our problems on? Oh, it's just hard times. Like,
The
no.
system is rigged against you, it's like, it's not individuals, it's the whole system is rigged against you. and you're not even aware of the ways in which you're oppressed. You're not even aware in which the ways you're kept down by like the man, not just probably white people, but like the whole system, which was designed for white people
Mm.
from white people. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
tricky because it's like you don't have another lens with which to view life. Like I don't. It's hard to know. Like people would say, "Oh, you have like white privilege," but I'm like, I don't know. I grew up like my parents didn't make a lot of money and they fought constantly. And like, yeah, they stayed married, but they fucking hated each other. They were like, so, it was so
Mhm.
toxic.
Mhm.
And they scraped to send us all to college and like let us know every step of the way how much it was costing them. So it's like, and it's not like I got this huge leg up. Like I majored in a dumb I got a dumb degree. I majored in communication. So it's like afterwards I went and gave tours at Radio City Music Hall for minimum wage. Like I that didn't feel privileged to me, but again, I don't have another example of how my life would have went.
Oh yeah, I would agree. I don't think that there is like, I'm put it to you this way. Any dominant demographic in a culture is going to have privilege. If I was in Japan, I'd be complaining about the higher ranking Japanese. It just happens to be in America right now. Give it like 50 years. Right now, the dominant population is going to be white people. But, it's a funny thing about history. So I'm Puerto Rican. So I'm Spaniard and I'm native, like Taino native. And then I'm African from the slave trade. So, like, there's this one part of my history where the Spaniards conquered the natives and participated in the slave trade, right? But then if you go further back, another 100 years, the Spaniards got their tails torn up by the Arabic Moors. So, like, we just think right now that like white people are the big, bad, awful humans. And in reality, like, just give it a couple 100 years. I'm sure it's going to be somebody else. Like, we just have the ignorance to only see what's in front of us and not to actually look at history.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and you were told a lot. Basically, at what point did you realize it feels bad to kind of stay here. I'm being told how oppressed I am, and if I don't get with this line of thinking, like I'm just not going to have a lot of friends. Like you mentioned that you were like kind of pissing off or clashing with a lot of your like female professors, and from what you were saying I'm like, oh, this sounds like such a perfect example of like toxic femininity. When I think too many women are in charge, this is going to sound sexist, but like honestly, when too many women are in charge of too much shit, like shit goes sideways, and it's just like it's imbalanced due to like our nature, and like certain women can do certain things great, but like I just don't think women should be like running the fucking country, or like we shouldn't be having like toxic female policies being pushed through that are more like emotion based and like rather than what's best for the country.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I thoroughly agree. I mean, people ask me all the time, like, Allie, do you think women should have the right to vote? I'm like, well, that's a nuanced question. I think we should have mandatory military service, non-combat. I'll say that. But for me, like,
Ooh.
I'll take the L. Like, I don't need, like, I'm sure my husband can probably vote way better than I can, but that's my perspective. But yeah, I clashed with the female professors, but I also clashed with some of the male professors too that were more on the liberal side of things. And I think they just weren't used to hearing people that had opposing thoughts, because in Kansas, the students that push back are like your typical white Christian conservative. It's not like a Latina from the ghetto who's like, hey, these progressive policies have hurt my community, so I don't agree with you. And I think that bothered them even more. I mean, I can't prove it, but yeah, it was the female professors that I think, were more punitive. I would have male professors, they would disagree with me, but they wouldn't sacrifice my grades for it. But female professors were more willing to deduct grades.
More vengeful.
Yes. Yes. But I mean, I'm
Hmm.
also like a young, attractive woman. So, that's
So
it's,
you're a
it's so
threat too.
nuanced. It is so nuanced. Why do women hate each other? Let me count the ways.
It's competitive out here.
Mhm.
Wow. And okay, so you wanted to be a social worker. You mentioned something that you said social workers are not really prepared to help. And I think that there's an interesting, I guess, argument because after all the summer of love, there was like defund the police went hand in hand with we need more social workers. We could be putting in social workers in these situations to help the mentally ill. Whereas supposedly all these cops come in and of course they're all racist. They come in and they just like shoot without thinking. We should have social workers coming in to help with these criminals, I guess. And so you observed personally that the social work students are not being prepared adequately in the real world. And we have this going. So how did you see that, and what did you think was lacking?
Well, because I was from the ghetto. Like seriously. So there's this place called Kissimmee, Florida. You guys want to know what Disney's dirty secret is? Is that Disney is in the hood. Like the one Disney even has a neighborhood called Celebration. So it's like Disney is beautiful, Celebration is beautiful, but then you get a little bit further in Kissimmee and you're like, "Dang, there's a lot of poor people and there's a lot of crime." But I'm trying to recall what your question is. I just
Is
missed it.
what were the ways in which you saw
Oh.
that the social working students were not prepared for the real world?
Well, all of their ideas were stupid. They were just like, let's give the poor folk more money. And I know that we do have access to money. We do. We can get food stamps. We can get Medicare. Not that that's money, but it's a benefit. We have so many other things. There was full ride scholarships in Florida. But what happens is like the money's there and the money's allocated. But what should be happening is like I don't know who would do this, maybe the liberal teachers, the teachers that we have in our high schools, elementary schools, whatever. They need to communicate what those options are to the parents. And like in Florida, there's a huge immigrant population. They don't even speak English. So how is that person who's an immigrant coming from Ecuador going to know that there's a free scholarship available to their child and to like monitor that academic progress? So a lot of the solutions just didn't seem to work out for me. I could just see that they were facilitating a worse and worse culture and then kind of keeping people, bending the knee to a Democrat vote. Like, I don't think they actually want to help us because if the problems go away, if poor brown people start to become successful, then a lot of nonprofits would close down. It's the same thing with feminism as well. If women are no longer oppressed, people are going to lose a lot of jobs. So that's kind
Hmm.
of how I knew from a structural standpoint that a lot of those issues were a problem because there's things that you go through in a minority culture that's going to vary. And I'm specifically talking about a Caribbean culture when I say the following things, but things like child ABUSE. And do these things happen in the white community as well? Yes, if the lower socioeconomic status, it does occur. But in my culture, it's pretty rampant and it's normalized. But there's no way that a white professor at a university could come out and say, hey, these minority individuals, these cultures are ABUSEing their kids and they're creating these problems in the long run, because then that would look racist. So, like, we don't even have our own representatives on a college campus to discuss the real issues and what the real solutions would be. The biggest solution would be to resolve fatherlessness. But then that goes directly against what feminism teaches, which is you don't need a man. Okay, so what does like your average poor brown woman in America, what can she do to double her household income without an education? She could get married.
OnlyFans.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, I mean, I pick your
but
poison.
that is
Mhm.
only good for 15 years, maybe 10 years. I guess it
For
depends how
OnlyFans?
old you are when you start
Mhm.
and how many socks you wanna sell. Yeah.
I mostly meant that, like, we could get married, but feminism's not gonna promote that. They keep just saying that we don't need men when obviously, like, our community does need fathers, but just keep pretending we don't.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what a lot of mental illness is linked to. I mean, like
Mhm,
fatherless homes, there's a direct correlation between crime rates and yeah, if you grow up without a dad. It's like, I
mhm,
bitch about my dad all the time, but it's like I'm glad he was there. I now know like I can tell a difference between like what his good and bad. Everyone has good and bad qualities, but it's like if he
mhm,
had he not been there, I could see how I would have grown up to be like I mean, it definitely had daddy issues, but it would have been way worse had he not been around because it's always better when two people can help shape you
mhm,
and they can kind of yin and yang and their strengths and weaknesses sort of complement one another.
mhm.
So, I don't know where I was going with this either.
That
It's
was a long
so hot in here. We currently have like a brownout going on where I live in New York. Like I didn't think it was gonna happen because it's only like 91 degrees here, but they've sort of decided that they're just gonna like shut off everybody's AC in my area. And I'm like, why is it so fucking hot? And I'm like wearing a dress right now. So like the sweat, I'm like sweating underneath my legs
Mhm.
onto the chair. So
I've
I'm
been
trying to like, yeah, I'm trying to create a sexy visual for everyone. It's so
there.
interesting because it's like it seems like there's so many, like, white liberal academic types that are mostly professors teaching in these areas, so concerned with equity, but it's almost like their background does not equip them to truly teach these subjects, yet they themselves think that they are the representative of they speak for all the minorities.
Mhm.
They're holier than thou. They're morally right.
Mhm.
They're morally righteous. They know what's up. Like, they really care about people, and you're just like, "No, you just can't speak on it because you're not from that background."
Mhm. Well, to just, like, have, accurate advice to identify accurate risk factors. The weird thing about it is, across the board in social sciences, they know that fatherlessness produces criminality, but I guess that they feel like it might be wrong to tell, like, Black and brown women, "Hey, have you tried getting married?" That's a funny thing about white feminists too, is, like, they have a they have a habit of being married and be like, "Oh, well, men are impressive, but not my husband. My husband is great." I'm like, "Okay."
They love shitting on their husbands. That is a huge
Mhm.
that's, like, one of the, like, biggest pastimes, I think, for white women is shitting on their boyfriends and husbands.
Mhm. Mhm.
I guess it's fun, but that's terrible. I mean, you wouldn't that's
Mhm.
the thing is, like, women wouldn't like that but it's become kind of, like, culturally okay. It's become, like, a cute joke, and it's like, well, what this is what happens when you, for decades, are just constantly putting down men. It's like, yeah, there's gonna be a mental illness problem. It's like, there's not a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
healthy male influence
Mhm.
out there, and men are if you're just told that you're shit all the time, like, just like if men were talking about the worst qualities in women all the time, like, we would start to get resentful and be like, "Fuck, I guess no more hand jobs," you know?
Mm.
So, okay. So, this is interesting.
Mhm.
And so at what point did you decide you're like, I'm not gonna be a social worker and I'm not gonna even try to, you switched to anthropology and you found like this is no better?
Mhm. Yeah, well, I found that out along the way because I had a mentor who, like, he swore up and down that he was I have a dog in here right now. Tom,
Oh, what kind
I
of dog?
have a golden retriever, but she's gonna knock
Oh
over
my
everything.
god. Can we see her? She's
It'd be so hard
okay.
to grab her, Tom.
Okay.
My husband is grabbing the
Is
dog.
she big?
She is huge. She's a
Oh.
big girl. She's about, like, 75 pounds now. So my husband basically told me, because he was listening in on like, during COVID, when you would go to college online, which made college vastly easier. He would listen to some of my lectures, and honestly, my brain was melting because it's social work, right? So it's, like, female led. So just all this gynocentric cacophony. They're like, "Well, I agree with what Brittany said." And then someone would be like, "I agree with what Janet said." And I was like, "You guys are not going to help anyone." And then part of the social work degree program was, like, the last half of the last semester, because I was one semester away from graduating, but I was just like, I booked it. I was like, forget it. This is stupid. But they kept trying to, like, tell the social work students that they would love their job, that, like, it's worth it. Like, and you could tell it was fake because the people that are telling you that you're going to love your job as a social worker are, like, miserable, obese, single women.
Oof.
Like,
Like, trust us. It's gonna be great.
yeah, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"I think that you guys are lying." So, I ended up going to anthropology. I had a good time, had a good mentor, still have immense respect for the man. We've disagreed a lot, but he helped me to learn how to do, like, audio and video and to tell stories, and so that's how I ended up getting the YouTube channel. But my husband just pushed me. He was like, "Look, you're not happy. Like, why don't you do what you wanna do?" But I was so caught up on, "Oh my gosh, well, I am 85% of the way through. I spent my
Ugh.
GI Bill on this. I don't wanna change at the last second, but it's the best thing that I ever did." And I was in school for an extra year, but it was worth it. And I do use my degree over here on YouTube, but mostly what I try to do is do cultural relativism. I try to understand men where they're at, and I try to understand women where they're at, and I try to kind of translate between the two of them to hope to, I don't know, kind of mitigate that divide that we have right now where women hate men, men hate women. I mean, men kind of hate women, not really. They still like us, they still want to sleep with us, but I think the man hating is the bigger problem.
Yeah, I think men as a group, generally, they probably carry less resentment. It's like, oh, they'll just be annoyed, like, women be shopping, and they'll see a hot woman be like, "Ah, I'm back in," you know? Like, whereas women, like, I feel like can carry like deep I think there's a deep cultural like resentment and shittiness. It's more I think there's more negativity towards men
Mhm.
from women than vice versa.
Mhm. I would say, like, the biggest way that you can tell that there's a general man hating or, like, man manipulating movement from women is male emotion. So we always keep like we keep telling men to be more vulnerable. Well, why don't you cry to me? Tell me how you really feel. First of all, men don't get the same responses as women when they do that. Men and women are not the same. Women cry and we get legislation. Men cry. Men cry and they get like, when
Disrespected, yeah.
yeah, yeah, basically. But nobody ever looks at, wait a minute, do men even want to cry by default? And they don't. There's like legitimate hormonal differences that also influence like neurology. Men process emotions and reality different than women. So like, and that those times in your life as a woman where you're saying, "Oh, why isn't he more emotional?" It's because they aren't. They do struggle with
Mm.
different emotions like aggression, and obviously men do get depression and anxiety, but not nearly at the same frequency and capacity as women. And that's what I see over there on TikTok. And so what I've noticed is like this is actually female manipulation. Like we are trying to convince men to act like women so they can be our girlfriends. We're not telling men to be men first, which they are. We're telling them that they're being men wrong. So that's like the biggest kind of like let
Yes.
men not cry. Stop encouraging them to cry. And if they do cry, I think men should cry to other men, because what is crying to a woman really going to do? And especially if you're crying to a woman, she's probably a feminist. She doesn't even have control over her own calories or the men that she sleeps with. Like what problems do you think you're going to solve with her, But there's also a breakdown in the brotherhood too. That I'd like to bring that back. I want men to be able to go to each other for their struggles cuz Lord knows like I can't really help men. My whole life and my experience is being deferred to because I'm a woman. I'm in a higher elevated social class.
It's interesting, the breakdown of the brotherhood. Do you feel like generally men are just, like, they're spending most of their hours working? Like, I see it a lot. I see it a lot, like, my brother kind of doesn't really seem to hang out with his friends much. Like, is it just something that seems to happen the older you get? But it's also like you need those friendships. Do you
Mhm.
think it's because men have a lot of pressure on them to, you know, just provide, and they've always gotta, like, be A plussing it? Like,
Mhm.
what happened? Is it the breakdown of
Mhm.
maybe group? Because it's like, I feel like with these groups, what are some examples? Like, Knights of Columbus, they're more geared towards, like, they appeal more to, like, older men. I'm not noticing many of groups that are geared towards younger men.
Oh gosh. I mean, well, if you look at the rates of autism, they're like greatly increasing in a way that it's not genetic. It has to be environmental. So people are just in general becoming more and more socially uncouth. If you're socially uncouth as a man, you're not going to be able to befriend other men. They're like, something's off with this guy. There's no way I want to be around him. But we have an individualized or individualistic society in the West. That's one problem. The other problem is like women entering the workforce. And before everybody like goes off like she's far right, I'm not saying that women shouldn't have the right to work. Okay, just hear me out. Prior to like 1950, women hung out with women and also children, and then men hung out with men. But now we have women entering the workforce. Women report men orders of magnitude greater than men report other men because we're offended by their own natural speech. So they just like it's like they can't hang out with the boys at work anymore. And then they could hang out with the boys at home, but then we have these domineering wives trying to control their men, which that is like so toxic in and of itself. You should let your man go fishing or go shooting. Like, what's the problem? The world isn't going to end if your man isn't like all eyes focused on you. So those are the ways that I've seen the breakdown. There's a lot of camaraderie in combat arms units in the military that I've noticed, but a lot of the guys that get out of the military, they do end up getting depressed though because they don't have that community anymore. I mean, I got depressed when I out processed. I didn't belong to anything greater than myself anymore. I was like just like everyone else.
Ugh. What was interesting about your experience from the military is, like, you were kind of told that you were equal to men. Like, everyone's kind of reading now about there's a, a real problem in our military trying to recruit people. And of course,
Um,
like, we hear about, oh, like, Joe Trans in the military. We see all the commercials. We're like, oh God, if I was a dude that was inclined to serve, it's like that. No, I don't want to go. Like, it's weakened the whole organization, in my opinion. And you were there, you served, you were kind of led to believe you could do whatever you wanted, and they didn't really acknowledge that men and women were different, and it led to you actually getting injured.
Oh, like permanently disabled, but it's not that bad of a disability. I have bilateral labral tears in my hips, and I had a stress fracture on my femur neck. So the labrum is a that cartilage that's on your between your femur head and its socket. So mine is torn. Now that happens to a lot of people. Sometimes it's a natural thing, but it happens to a significant amount of women that join the military. And that's just like one main biological difference is like the Q angle that's in our hips. Women have wide hips and our knees kind of go in, whereas like men have straight and narrow hips, so they can handle a lot more of the walking long distance, the rucking. So rucking is hiking in the military, and like doing the constant running and things like that. So for me, I went from, playing video games, serving in the army, and trying to keep up with men, but not really. At the beginning of basic training, you just keep up with other women. It was when I got to my first combat arms unit that it started like psychologically doing a number on me, because you have to think like, I really thought I could do the same thing as men, because I was just a hardworking woman. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to get after it. And I go to this combat arms unit. I'm the second woman to ever show up in my medic platoon. And then the woman that came before me, she had only been there for 2 weeks. So both of us were like fresh off of training. We show up there and they didn't even really know how to behave. They kept trying not to curse around me. And one day I was like, you guys can say whatever you want around me. And they were like, oh, thank God. I was like, yeah,
Aw.
okay. But they would yell at me, one of the NCOs, but he was a little bit off anyway. But they would yell at me to run as fast as them. And I ended up like seeing a counselor over this, where I was just like, I just can't run as fast as them. Like, what am I doing wrong? I wish I could be better. Keep in mind, like, I've already got really crappy bone density. The fact that the United States government even rubber stamps women as combat medics is a joke. It's an absolute joke, because most women cannot pick up a 6-foot male in kit. So with the bulletproof armor and with the weapon, and we've also got like the helmet, and you have the litter. The litter is what you carry people on. You'll see that when people are getting loaded up into an EMS vehicle, an emergency medical services vehicle. So most women cannot do it, but they let us do it anyway. And I remembered being in training thinking like, wow, this is pretty easy, And all four of us, these 5'4" women, all four of us on one litter trying to carry a guy. And I
Oh,
didn't
man.
realize until I got out that I was lied to. Because the whole time, this is how stupid it is. I was like, wow, I'm the slowest one. I'm always the slowest one. That's weird.
And you're not out
Yes.
of shape. You're pretty fit. Like,
Mhm.
it's not even like you're out of shape. Like, you're in shape and you're just
Mhm.
still feeling like, "Oh my god, I can't keep up. What the fuck am I doing wrong?"
I know. Yeah, that was when I realized that the government just lied to me and lies to other women. But, it's fine because we're in peacetime. But there's going to come a time where if we have like woke commanders that legitimately think that men and women can do the same things on average, because I get it, like there are some women who can hack it, but I've only ever met in real life, like the whole time I was in the army, I met 2 women that could hang. And not at the same capacity as like a large physically fit man, but just like in comparison to like your average fit guy. There was only ever 2. So, I mean, if it would ever come to that, we have a woke commander that sends out women, like it's going to be very dangerous. And then another thing, like men have a biological impulse to throw themselves in front of women that they don't even know and they're not related to. Like that's what happened with the Las Vegas shooting. So like you send these women and men out there to assault an objective. What do they actually expect is going to happen? Because the men are just going to throw themselves in front of me no matter what. So it's a huge problem. Yeah. But that's
Yeah.
why they can't get nobody to join. If I was a man, I wouldn't join the army. They got like the sexual harassment policy that says if a man stares at you or if he licks his lips, that can be harassment. Like I wouldn't
Oh
join.
god. That could just be like somebody brought donuts in, you know? Like, "I wasn't looking at you."
I
Yeah,
know.
Army veteran on Biden's woke military struggling to recruit, weakening us on the world stage. This
Mhm.
just came out today. Congressional candidate and Army veteran Corey Mills called out the woke agendas pushed by Biden and the Department of Defense on Fox and Friends today. Criticized the military for prioritizing CRT and pronouns over strength on the world stage as the military recruitment drops.
Mhm. Yeah, people don't want to serve anymore. I mean, even officers are leaving because it's getting like with this administration, it's getting pretty bad. I mean, I served under Obama and I served under Trump. Both times I felt like it was fine. I did feel like Trump was a really good commander in chief, though. I'm not going to lie. But that's only because he responded to threats. He was like, you guys will not mess with us. And I was like, thank you. Thank you.
So
Mhm.
what other ways did you feel like Trump was a good commander in chief? Was it mostly his just not backing down to threats?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much because that stuff's like not a joke. Like war costs. It costs lives and it costs dollars. And so, if maintaining a masculine presence on the world stage is going to mitigate for that cost, which is American lives, which none of the senators, like their kids, are serving, none of those guys, like their kids, are serving. So, like, yeah, I think that was really good. But the bigger thing about it was that someone I knew had been killed in action, and that to me, was really upsetting. I saw him at work, a couple of times, but he went on to pursue greater things in the military, and that's actually probably what did him in, is that he just decided to go
Uh,
like a higher caliber position. And Trump was the only person that I can remember at the time. I'm sure other people spoke out against it, but he like responded directly to the people that did that attack. And then I didn't really see much from the Democrats. And so like
wow.
yeah, obviously I was going to think that he was a good commander in chief. Like look at like Biden left soldiers in Afghanistan, and people gloss over this. Like that is absolutely crazy. That's nuts. Like you're not supposed to do that. I don't. That's like rule number one of being a president. You don't leave your people behind. Like rule number one. I don't know.
Yeah, that must have made you guys so angry. Like, do you still keep in contact with a lot of other veterans who served with you, or a lot of them still in?
Some most people leave. People get burnt out by the end of the first contract. I don't keep in touch with a whole lot, but they follow me on my YouTube channel and they follow me on Instagram, and sometimes they like pop in for a chat. But mostly, I just have a lot of respect for them, and if they ever needed help, I'd be available to them.
Aw, that's good.
Mhm.
Yeah, I that's what I've heard from all the veterans I know is just how upsetting the whole Afghanistan situation was, and just like that's not common. That's not like a common fuck up. Like that was a
Mhm.
big fuck up on Biden's part.
Oh yeah, and like everyone's just pretending like this didn't happen. I'm like, is this a Twilight Zone? What am I living in an alternate reality?
Did you, when you were in the military, did you see any trans people there, or is it more just like the ideologies were in full swing?
Well, I saw what what is normal. I saw a couple of gay men. I saw more butch lesbians than I saw gay men. And it's
Okay.
like what's wrong with that? You know what I mean? Like what's wrong with that? Like I got respect for my butches. They were getting the work done. They're getting the job
Yeah.
done. Yes, one of my best friends on deployment. She was a pretty masculine lesbian woman. I thought she wanted to be my friend, to be my friend. Come to find out one day I was like, "Wait a minute. Did you decide to be my friend because you thought I was hot?" And she was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh my God."
These lesbians are so sneaky. I want to be your friend. No, I want to be more than friends. But I still feel flattered by that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Interesting. Okay. So, dang, do you see things getting much worse before they get better for the military? Like what would it take? It would take us, I don't know, would it unfortunately take us not no longer being in peacetime for the military to kind of like see the error of their ways? And I mean, they must know they're weakening it. This
It
isn't rocket
depends.
science.
It depends. Like if push comes to shove, I don't know. It depends on how much people care about women, not making it through combat, being killed in action. If people still care about that, then it will change. But if people don't care about that, because right now, like men and women are the same, they're equal. So, I mean, if that's out the window, then it's just going to be a hard time for women. But low key kind of think we deserve it at this point. I'm like, like the feminists really dropped the ball where they're like, hey, men, if you want to be women, come under our wing. I was like, no, why would you let them in the club? Like we're talking like Leah Thomas. Are you serious? 400 and something place, and then your first place for women, and women are still out here like la da 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 da, still competing. I
Yeah,
would,
women should have gate kept a little bit better. It's like, no, man. It's like, go be a man. Go just if you suck at being a man, be a better man. Don't try to be a woman. God damn it.
yeah. Well, I'm just like, what's up with I miss the LGBT of old. Like they were the best. Like Gen X gays were awesome, awesome. Like, can we bring them back? I don't know what's going on right now. Up is down, left is right. I'm done. My kids are gonna be homeschooled. So.
Oh, yeah. It's not looking good.
Mm-hmm.
I like that you got a lot of mentors early on, like, kind of after you joined the military, you noticed that, like, a lot of and it was interesting because your upbringing, you were kind of raised to kind of despise white people, and then you noticed that you had, like, you kind of despised people that came from a two-parent household, which is, like, everybody has some version of that, like, I was raised to kinda despise, like, the kids at school that were rich, that, like, you could they got lunches every day and like
Mhm.
they didn't have to like break into their own house because they forgot a key because their mom was working. Like it's so
Mhm.
easy to be, and of course like everybody who my dad hated, like every group that my dad hated, like they
Mhm.
tell you why, and it's like almost like, all right, should I be hating these people too? So everyone's got their versions of that.
Mhm.
um then you join the military and a lot of your mentors are like straight white men, and you had this realization of like, oh man, a lot of people that are successful in life like are conservative.
Yeah. That was, like,
How
mind-boggling for me. I was like,
just like a whole like your mind was blown.
yeah, well, I just when I was 18, I registered to vote as a Democrat. I was like, "Well, it's just what I'm supposed to do." I wasn't thinking much of it. I went to Obama's second inauguration. Now, I do wanna say, like, there's a lot of things that I did like about Obama, okay? That dude was handsome, and he was a good public speaker. Like, charisma
Great
was
public
off the
speaker.
I'm
Mhm.
telling you, the man could sell, an Eskimo ice. He could totally do it. So, like, I do wanna say that, but I just went and registered, okay, and it was fine. But it wasn't until 2016 where I was like, "Wait a minute, the math ain't mathin'," and that was when it got leaked that Hillary Clinton stole the nomination from Bernie Sanders. And I guess in that time, I probably would have voted for Bernie. I was really young. That's probably why I got treated badly in some of my first combat arms unit too, is because like I showed up like mildly indoctrinated and annoying and chipper. So once that came out, and then Bernie was like, "I endorse Hillary Clinton," I was like, "Wait a minute, this is suspect. You guys still want my vote, even though you guys are fibbers, and I didn't even vote either." The day that Trump got elected, I cried because I thought all my white friends were secretly racist and not telling me. Yeah.
Oh my god, you were one of those people in the street. Ah!
I wasn't gonna do that, but I cried in my apartment that I lived in at the time, and I was like, "My friends are secretly racist." No, but I started noticing that my male mentors that I had in the military, they were all medical providers because I was a medic, right? So these are men that are physician's assistants, and they are doctors, MDs, DOs, and they're like pretty upfront about their politics. They're like, "Yeah, I like Trump," and I was like, that's weird. Like, you're such a nice person. Why do you like Trump? And I started noticing that we even had a Turkish doctor who, well, he was a PA, but even he was conservative. I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, there's something to this. There's something to this culture that these people end up going to school and making some money. I was like, I want to know. Give me the secrets. So I would talk to these straight white men about their approach to economics and owning property and saving or marriage, Christianity, and they helped me every step of the way, more than my family ever had. Like, my family can't offer me because I went in blind. My mom was only a high school grad. My grandmother didn't finish; she didn't even finish high school. So I was like the first one to get a degree. My uncle did a little bit before me, but he was supposed to have been done that. You know what I mean? So that was what blew my mind. And so I would ask even deeper questions, and I would ask them questions about race. I was like, wait a minute. So, like, are all cops racist? And they're like, no. Like, most of them are just regular people trying to do a job. I was like, what? I was like, and Republicans aren't racist. And they were like, no. Like, my best friend is black. I was like, what? So yeah, I mean, that was pretty much, sealing the deal for me. And then I ended up I ended up going pretty much all the way to the right in college because it started off with, the math ain't mathin' with the Democrats in 2016. And then, or was it 2020? I don't know. I don't know. And
Yeah,
then,
2016.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
starting to be like, "Oh,
yeah. And
I
then
didn't
the
expect
doctors
Trump
and
to win."
the
Like, I
college.
voted for fucking what the hell? Jill Stein. Like, I was still hating Trump and, like, not understanding why people liked him.
Nice. I love him now. I mean,
He's great. He's great. We'll see what happens. I feel like
mhm.
it's a little bit of an uphill battle. I mean, he's definitely running, right? So, is it gonna be him versus Gavin Newsom? Ugh, I don't know. I don't know how
That
many tricks
guy.
Democrats can pull out of their ass, but
Oh my. Ooh, yes.
I wanna get to a couple of these, chats. Why so Darius, thank you for becoming a member. Jay Blaze, Allie the assassin in the house.
Oh, thanks, Jay Blaze. I like you. Thank you.
We like Jay Blaze. Jesse Meek for 5. Kansas represents McPherson County here and a Marine vet. I won't hold the Army against you though. Lol.
Marines do it better. I'm gonna say that.
Like in bed or just all things?
Oh, not just all things. Like, even the women in the Marines are better. They're hotter too. Well, I mean, they're more
Ooh,
fit. A little ugly in the face, but they're more fit. The hottest women are in the Air Force. Bar
okay.
none. Yes. Hmm.
Maybe because I don't yeah, that's interesting. I would love to do, like, a hotness ranking. NVIDIA, I agree, women ruin everything. NVIDIA is super based. How do you think growing up with a gay dad shaped your life? That's for me. My dad sort of told me a couple months ago he had a gay experience, and, now I just know why he's so angry all the time, probably because he can't live the gay life of his dreams.
Could
Um,
be. Mm,
Rick Talrooter, if you give some people other people's money, they'll vote for you and give you power. Whether it actually helps them in any way is incidental.
mhm, mhm.
We are all fed a lie. Nvidia saying you're gross won't stop the simping, Chrissy. Oh, I am sweaty today. Pat Stedman, have you thought about why conservatives tend to call the issue fatherlessness instead of single motherhood?
Oh,
Oh.
yeah. I mean, I hate I'll put it to you this way. I grew up in a single mother home. I would have rather gone to Afghanistan, and I'm not joking. 10,000% would have rather gone to Afghanistan. I went to Jordan, it was fine. And Afghanistan's pretty comfortable depending on where you're at, you know? So it was rough. So, yes, the problem is mate selection on women's part. Absolutely. You know, because we're the ones saying yes to sex. It's us. So, mhm,
It's our fault.
mhm,
And I think generally, statistically speaking, women are more inclined to ask for a divorce. Women are more statistically
mhm,
cheating.
mhm,
That's just what I've been reading. Interesting. It's all women's fault. It's our fault. Right. People are so quick to give guys shit,
mhm.
but we do. It's ultimately it's our legs that are being opened. So it comes down to us, ladies. Matthew Hammond. It seems that men have a problem with women when they experience the family court system and have their children and paycheck taken from them.
Mhm,
It
mhm,
is definitely rigged more in the mother's favor, for sure.
mhm, mhm. Well, to me, like this is the crazy part about it is the women that will take their baby daddies or their ex-husbands to court for alimony and child support that they don't deserve and like use their kids as pawns. You be looking at them like, don't you have a son? Like, are you not getting from point A to point B where you're understanding that what you're doing to the father of your children models what you believe is acceptable to occur to your son? It doesn't cross your mind.
Say that again. That is so important.
Oh,
That is so important.
what you do to your ex-husband, the father of your kids, demonstrates what you think is socially acceptable to happen to your son. But they don't think about it that way. I'm like, you're
No, they
completely
see
okay
their
with
kid
it.
as a pawn. It's like it's
Mhm,
just a person with which to gain power in another aspect of your life.
mhm, mhm. Oh yeah.
Damn, that is important. NVIDIA, I don't get it. Can we get a man on to help explain?
I feel like that's
Uh,
a joke. I don't think I know about that one.
it is it's just yeah, it was a joke. Like mansplaining.
Mhm, mhm.
I'm very pro man. Inside of the ages, as an extremely masculine macho man, this level of empathy for male struggle is sincerely making me want to cry. We are broken. Oh,
I mean, women should care more. It's the entire other half of the population. It's like we only care about men if we can get off from them. Like
it's like
that.
we care about our sons, but we don't. Right? You're not making the connection.
Mhm. Well, actually, I
Of
don't think women care about their sons. I mean, it's pretty crazy because I don't know like what neighborhood you grew up in, but I've
Long
talked.
Island, like it was
Okay.
very Italian, very
Mhm.
Jewish. A lot of cops, a lot of teachers.
Mhm. Well, I tried to save a stripper once. It was a foolish endeavor, but I just like look at the way she would treat her baby daddy, and now like lots of things happened in that relationship, and it was violent and it was toxic. But I can assure you, she wasn't sitting there with no tea and crumpets, and he just like showed up angry. No, she would post the text messages on their story that she had with him on her private story, her close friends list, and she sounded
Damn.
like a serial killer, and he would be like, "You're the problem," and she'd be like, "No, I'm not." And meanwhile, like she has a son and she has an OnlyFans. So no, I don't think modern mothers care about their sons. I'm sorry. Like I met a mother, she's Gen X. She didn't know that her son had to register for the draft in order to vote. So like I could see why men are a little bit different in the dating market. Like your own mom doesn't get you. Like, oh, I don't know. Mhm.
Yeah, for real. NVIDIA reporting the stream for disinformation. uh, Jesus. Jesus is here. Thank you for the super sticker.
Mhm.
Oh, another one from Josh Durham. Isn't a large part of the military women and Hispanic?
Mm, well, I mean, no, it's like predominantly male. I want to say it's like 85% male, but that's just from the observation that I made. Is there a large portion that's Hispanic? No, it's a pretty white organization, to be honest. I mean, that's why you have like, you have some of these politicians that are like, you don't think that the military's facilitating white supremacy? I'm like, y'all, it's like white dudes are the only ones that want to serve. Like, what do you want? Like, they can't save us all, you know?
Good point. Good point. Okay. From God, I can't pronounce this. One. Big respect to ladies like you too. The world needs more respectable women, mentors, too many of the wrong kind, warping the minds of our daughters. This is an interesting point because you brought up something
Mhm.
that I think is so interesting, which is, and you called it maternal narcissism.
Oh, yeah.
Where do you see this most prevalent, and what do you think is the cause?
Um, I think it's a Latin issue for sure, but it's because in the Latin culture we have a concept marianismo and machismo. So marianismo is like women are, close to Mother Mary, especially mothers. So they're holier than thou, they're above reproach, above critique, and so like the kids are pretty subservient. Um and they seem to have like some problems with their daughters, but it's because the daughters have to juggle old world and new world traditions. So if you do like the new world traditions, then you'll be successful in business, but then at home they're going to think like you're a disrespectful SLUT or something like that. And then they also give their sons like a lot of passes. It's a weird thing to
Hmm.
be in a Latin culture where the son of the mother is elevated, but then like the daughter is kind of shamed. It's a weird balance and weird juggle there. So that's what I've seen when it comes to maternal narcissism. But maternal narcissism doesn't come from good times, right? So for my culture, the reason why it's so prevalent is like my grandparents were plantain choppers and coffee bean pickers, and they didn't have that much of an education. So parenting to them was, are you fed? Are you clothed? Is there shelter? Okay, great. That's all you need. That was it. So there wasn't a lot of emotional development for Latinos, like Gen X Puerto Ricans. I'll be more specific. But the Gen X Puerto Ricans end up going to, New York City, and they become really Americanized. And so they end up becoming narcissistic because they already lacked emotional development because of what happened before. You can compare that to sharecropping. So anyone whose grandparents were just like hard agricultural workers that didn't have an education, that tends to be a problem. But it's basically like your mom grew up in a situation where she had to only think about herself in order to survive. But that ends up getting dumped on the daughter. And then we end up struggling in the dating market. But maternal narcissism impacts men as well. There's a concept called emotional incest where like mothers make their sons into their boyfriends, their man to lean on. It's nothing sexual, but it is in that way that you're your mother's emotional support and you're not supposed to be that. So that's like maternal narcissism in a nutshell.
Yeah, I felt that way, like, my mom, great lady, but she a little because her and my dad's relationship was so toxic and they pulled away from each other so much emotionally that she did kind of rely on us kids, for her. We were like her emotional support animals to the point where, like, when we left and went to college, it was like we were never visiting enough, we were never doing anything enough, we were never calling enough, like, and I very much grew up with this feeling like her well-being is my responsibility. Her happiness is my responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, like, after she died, one of her friends said, like, "Oh, yeah, she told me that she felt that you were her soulmate." And I was like, "That's sweet," but at the same time, it's so much. Like, you should not be
Uh-huh.
heaping that much emotional responsibility onto your kids. Like, their kids are supposed to be kids, not but she pulled so much away, just was like, fuck working it out with my dad, that she just
Mhm.
relied on us, and we were kids. Our survival's kind of wrapped up in her, so you kind of go along with it.
Mhm.
MZQT McHotness. As a drill sergeant at FLW from 2016 to 2019, I can confirm recruits like Aly, who came in from the far left, typically find their way to the middle because it's all one team. We fight. All one team, one fight.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, I wasn't like far left. I was just like center left for no reason. There wasn't critical thinking involved. I was like, this is who I am.
Like
Without
default. Yeah, this is what it means to be like a modern lady.
Mhm.
Arcion, do you think single moms should put their relationship with their partner ahead of their child?
Mhm. So that's a hard question for me to answer. Short answer, yes, but So that's a hard question for me to answer because my goal of my platform is to reduce child abuse risk in half by helping women to get married and stay married with their first choice, right? Which is very hard to do, which is why we need romantic education as women and mate selection education. But I can't tell what is the better outcome because if you introduce a man who's not the biological father into the home, it actually increases the risk of child abuse. But having that
Hmm.
bump in socioeconomic status, does that offset that? I'm not really sure. So I do recommend for women to get remarried because I think that we need a father in the home. It's just, it takes like very thorough vetting. But single mothers, well, like if I was a man and I was going to date a single mother, probably because I had to, probably because single and childless women might not be looking at me. Okay. I'm just going to keep it a stack. So, like, I'm looking at the single mother on Hinge and she's like, my kids come first. What I would immediately see is I'm going to be second. Why would I sign up for that? Because, like, a man who steps
Hmm.
in is paying for another man's DNA. And if he's going to make that huge sacrifice, like you would do well to put him first. And that's not to say neglect the children, but do you want a man to lead your household or not? You know, but these single mothers act like it's the end of the world to put a man first. I'm like, that's how you ended up single mothers in the first place, ma'am. Like, good Lord. So, yeah, I think they should.
Do you think it's the same for women? Do you think, like, because I started dating my boyfriend, he had a kid, and I knew right away I was not gonna be first, and I just had to, like, come to terms with that. Do you think
Mhm.
it's different for women?
For women, you're just competing for time for the man's attention. Now it's divided between you and another kid. But I mean, even men get a little bit disgruntled with the mother of their child after they give birth. They're like, wait a minute, I have to share her now. But single fathers and single mothers are not the same. Like men and women are so different. Single fathers, majority of the time, they still have time to date because the women are getting awarded custody. Single mothers, it's like a huge ding for you. But for men, it's social proof. Like, look, I was willing to commit or I reproduce and I'm willing to pay for this offspring. And
"Look,
women
my
see that.
sperm works." Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, basically. And women are like, oh, okay, maybe he'll do it for me. So yeah, I think it is different for men and women.
Interesting. I love that the title of your YouTube page was actually, yeah, it was "Reducing Child Abuse Through
Hmm.
Marriage."
Yeah.
How and you say you help women with coaching, like, what if someone's listening and they're like, how would a woman listening to this know, like, "Oh, maybe I could benefit from some Ally coaching?"
Hmm. Well, I think the first question is like, are you happy with what you're getting in the dating market? And I'm not in any way saying to get divorced, pack up and leave. Okay. I'm just saying, are you happy with what you're getting as a woman? Because you attract what you are. So if you're like a low quality or a low value woman, that's what you're going to attract in a man. And I know that average makes the world go round, but average in America right now is like, it's just like catastrophic at this point. Like it might have been fine in the 90s and any time before that. But now I'm not convinced anymore. And I've been like, I'm getting less and less convinced of the validity of the average, American now that I have a YouTube channel. I'm like, is it really this bad? Are people really thinking like this? But so that would be the first question that I would pose with women, or if they have the man that they want, are they getting along well? Do they understand him? Because all I really do is explain some of the male positions to women the way that men have taught me, because I talk to men pretty much all day every day, and that's what I serve as. I'm like a, what is it, like a phone translator. They're like,
Yeah,
well,
you're like a
yeah.
whisperer.
Mhm. Like I had a client, she was talking about how, oh my gosh, we're so crazy too, which is like the funny thing about it. So she got into this disagreement with her man where she had to walk home alone from her appointment, and she was like, it was so scary. I wish he would have walked with me. And he was like, well, why don't you just make your appointment earlier in the day? She was like upset. She wanted him to like show out and defend her and protect her. And she was offended. She's like, I felt like I wasn't valued. And I was like, hold on, wait a minute. Like,
You didn't value yourself enough to make an earlier appointment time? Like, to take care of yourself first?
mhm.
Yeah.
But I just explained to her he was legitimately problem solving. You said it was scary walking at night for my appointment. I felt scared without you. And he was like, okay, valid issue. Why don't you just go earlier? But for us women, we want to have all these feelings and stuff like that. So I'm mostly a reality check for women. And it's pretty effective. Like nothing I say is rocket science. Men tell us what they want, unless you're dealing with like a playboy, but like they're very direct. But women often don't want to hear it. We're like, F you and your needs. It's about my needs. Mhm.
Okay. Okay, so if you are striking out, basically, and you don't know why,
Mhm.
you need to check yourself. You need some Aly coaching. And do you really so that was an interesting statistic, and I have heard that before, that, like, the majority of child abuse is, basically, like, a single mother, and then, like, they'll date it's usually that guy, that the new guy that ends up abusing their kid.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing, but in general, like, women do abuse children as well, I mean, pretty significantly, but nobody talks about that. I feel like if you look at the domestic violence stats, it's pretty, like, 50-50 split, and I'm telling you, I grew up in the ghetto. Women swing just as much as men, 100%. I'm telling you, like, it's crazy. Be watching this stuff because it's almost like, watching any dramatic BET movie. Like, you're sitting there as a kid and you're like, "Oh, she really swung at him." You're like, "Oh my god." But as a kid, you think it's normal. You get older and you're like, "Wait a minute. Wait a darn second there." But, yeah, I mean, that's something that's normal in the animal kingdom as well, where there's things like infanticide that occur. It's not as common as people make it out to be because the manosphere will see one thing and they're like, "Oh, look, it's happening everywhere." Like, no, there's, specific circumstances in which a gorilla will perform infanticide. But the point is that that's another man's DNA. Does he want to pay the cost of that? Because what they do with typically what happens with infanticide and primates is it pushes women into like mass ovulation. Like because they would be weaning,
'Cause
probably breastfeeding.
they sync up, right?
Yeah, well, they might be, like, weaning and breastfeeding, so they get rid of all the kids, and then, like, boom, like, a lot of these women become pretty fertile pretty quick, and so, like, they get to plant their seed moving forward, and that's their genetic investment. So, can that be translated into a single mother home? I think so. I think that there's lots of stepfathers don't value their stepkids the same that they would their biological child, but it's the same thing with people who adopt. Like, there are some things that have a biological basis. If you don't have that ability to form a secure attachment due to genetics, what can you really do about that? You can try to overcome it. Like, I know people that have adopted children and love them, and I know stepfathers that do love their stepkids as almost as if they were the real kids. But I just don't think that that really speaks to biological urges that happen all the time because we see it on the news. We don't see it when women abuse kids on the news, but we'll see it if a boyfriend does it. They're like, "Oh, look at him, he was so bad." I'm like, "Why'd she let him in the house?" Mhm.
I wonder if it's because, like, abuse from women is maybe it's more psychological, maybe it's more like emotional manipulation, and it's, like, harder to see whether, like, a guy hitting a kid is, like, very blatant and obvious, and, like,
Mhm.
emotional manipulation is harder to suss out.
Yeah, yeah, I think so, but I also think that, like, women slap more. Like, women are aggressive, just not in the same behaviors as men. Like, men will get into full-on fist fights. Women, I know for a fact, like, we do slap more. So, like, slapping a kid is still physical
Wow,
assault.
I could never. I even, like, at the most angry I've ever been, I could never hit somebody, but that's because I got hit as a kid, so it's like,
Mhm,
I'm so myself, even if, like and I've noticed, like, even, like, in the working world, like, every boss I have, when I hear them start to, like, raise their voice and get angry, I, like, brace myself, and it's like, "You're not always about to get hit, Chrissy,
mhm,
relax," but it's like, as a kid, you just hang on to that stuff, but
mhm.
I could just never hit somebody, I'm just so much better. No,
We could at least, like, not hit a kid, like, that's
yeah,
really
come
weird.
on.
Like, get some control over yourselves, ladies. Like, come on, it's not okay.
I think we do cut women too much slack. So
Mm,
from your experience, the women you've coached and just your
mhm.
observations, what do you think are, like, the top 3 biggest mistakes that women do with dating or, like, mate selection or
Oh
just
gosh.
fucking up their lives in general?
Um, they get with a man that doesn't have genuine desire for them.
And how do you figure that out, though? How would you coach a woman to, like,
Oh,
"Oh, like, they're sleeping with me, they must like me, right? They're
uh,
telling me to come over at midnight, they must like me."
yeah. Well, so I mean, in one circumstance, there was a young woman, and she was just talking about how she was with someone for a year, and he called her his girlfriend. So they were boyfriend and girlfriend, but they had broken up one time before he broke up with her. There were things that he said he felt like he couldn't, give her what she was asking for. But the whole time they were together, she wanted him to like meet her family, meet her father, and he never did. And it's like it's a whole year. A whole year is ample time to meet a woman's family, But if you don't have that genuine desire, if he, the man, does not have genuine desire for you, he will not do it. It's that whole principle. If he wanted to, he would, but women, I think, I don't know. I don't know why they would keep around a man like that, because the man is keeping the woman around because he has, sexual access to them, which is another problem about like putting out when you're unmarried as a woman. If you do everything that a wife does, like what incentive does he have to marry you? Like, you want me to commit to you for the same things that you're already giving me.
Mhm.
So
Like, women don't realize how powerful puss really
yeah.
is
Mhm.
and how, like,
Mhm.
withholding it can help you get that commitment if
Mhm.
that's what you want.
Yeah, a good way to tell genuine desire for a man is if he feels put off by you doing acts of kindness for him, or feminine acts, right? So I had a friend who, she, hooked up with this guy, and the next morning she made him a cup of coffee and was asking, "Hey, do you want me to get some groceries delivered over here?" Because he didn't like all the food that she had, and he ends up like saying later, like, "Oh, she was doing too much," like doing too much, just like showing out. But that just shows that he didn't have genuine desire for her, because if he really liked her, he would have felt like it was romantic that she did those things, or at least that it was kind. But if a man doesn't have genuine desire for you, he's actually going to feel cornered by your feminine acts. It's like you have sex with a guy and you make him a sandwich and he's like, "Why are you doing this for me?" Well, that's a very clear indicator that he does not actually like you.
That's really good. Yeah, they'll say, "Oh, you're being clingy, you're just being extra." It's like, "No, this is, like, actually a love language, like, it's an act of service, it's a thing." Yeah.
Mhm, mhm,
Yeah, same thing, like, if you're I remember I went on a date when I was single, like, a million years ago, I think it was after I slept with this dude, but the next day it was raining,
mhm.
and he was walking me to the subway, and I was like, "Ugh." He wanted to walk me to the subway with an umbrella, and I was like, "Ugh."
See, and you didn't have genuine desire for him, because
No.
let him had been a catch. You'd have been like,
I
"Oh
didn't
my
have
god, thank you.
Oh, I
Thank
knew I
you."
didn't have genuine desire, like, 10 minutes into that hookup. I was like, "Let's just run out the clock, like, I gotta go to work tomorrow."
I know it. Mhm,
So, this guy was like, "You know what? I'm gonna chalk this up to community service," and,
mhm,
it was my good deed. That's
mhm,
interesting, though, about if a guy is like, "Ugh," if you're trying to do something nice for a guy and they're not accepting it,
mhm.
take that as a good hint.
Yes, please
Alright.
take the hint, ladies, because 'cause I'm telling you, they're men are so straightforward.
They are simple. They're
Mhm,
simple, wonderful creatures.
mhm,
Cool, cool. I think did we tackle I think we did sort of tackle the
mhm.
social workers are not going to replace police. That's a joke.
Oh, yeah. Well, we did not talk about that, but the
I'm gonna
fact
pull
that
this.
you're trying to do that is so stupid. What? Oh,
This is just one local article out of Massachusetts. Massachusetts police say they want more mental health collaborators, but there's a shortage.
mhm,
Right, and especially when we can draw a lot of these. I can understand it because a lot of these mass shooters are people who have mental health issues. In fact, most of them probably are.
mhm,
But it's like, okay, what's gonna stop a mass shooter? Like, let me get a social worker. Let's talk about your feelings. It's no, like you're currently mid shooting. It's like
mhm,
you kind of just need to
mhm.
stop what's happening. Um, responders work for mental health agencies. They collaborate with police. Let's see. They said we would like to have a co-responder available on duty every minute of every day. Yeah, that
Mhm.
would be nice in a perfect world. Let's see here. Yeah, are they making eye contact? Are they restless? Are they pacing? Again, these are like, oh, goal of de-escalation. Again, this is all nice, like when it's not in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, of course. It's so being a social worker is actually a dangerous job too, and like they won't let you carry a weapon if you're a social worker and you're responding to a crisis intervention. So you like need a police escort. But I just think it's the dumbest thing ever. Like, but they want so badly to stop police from interacting with mentally ill people, as if mentally ill people will not do dangerous things. And like, I'll be transparent. I've been mentally ill. Like, I don't, I don't understand. Like, people really think, what'll help us out? If Janet, the social worker, talks to the man who's about like had it with life and is ready to go postal, like Janet's gonna talk some sense into him. Oh, like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Now, I know master's degrees in psychology, like they're better at it, but just trying to replace cops with social workers is dumb. social workers are just going to get killed. But, if they want to try it out and be progressive, like, be my guest.
And most social workers, I would imagine, are women, and it's like if you have a mentally ill, like, young man in kind of
Mhm.
a dire situation, like, I think it would be just easier to listen to, like, an older man that's like, "Hey, I've been there, buddy." Like, it's
Mhm.
almost like is there something a little bit, like, condescending about, like, yeah, Janet trying to, give you life advice? It's like, well, she hasn't really, like, been through what you've been through. I just think it
Mhm.
speaks to a greater, like, lack of, like, positive male influence.
Mhm. Oh yeah, I mean, just like social tact. Like what? I heard about this in class too, and it was just hilarious because it'd be like a scrawny liberal that's like, "Yeah, we should do that." I'm like, I could knock you out myself. What do you mean? Like, give me some PCP and a weapon. How do you think you're gonna come out of that? Like, so bad. Oh man.
Henrik says, I don't know if this has to do with something we talked about earlier.
Mhm.
Curiosity killed your preconceived notions. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
You, Ruben, thank you for becoming a member.
Mhm.
Pat Simon, get Lauren Southern to have a genuine debate and not another theatrical lefty versus trad. That is not practical. I suggest Ryan Stone. Aly can explain. Chrissy can make it happen. Trad is not red pill.
Oh yeah.
What do you mean by this? I'm going to
Well, I mean,
break
that's
this
like really
down.
easy for me to break down. So you ever hear
Okay.
women be like, "I'm a traditional conservative." You ever hear them say that?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. How many women that say that do you think are virgins?
Probably none.
Okay, exactly. There you go. An actual traditional conservative woman saves herself for marriage, like point blank period, the end. That's like the number one benchmark. Um, but like women still think that they're being traditional conservatives. However, it's like we can't possibly be. Our sexual maturity happens around, like, for women, probably like 15, maybe men 18, could be earlier than that. But our economic maturity, so like when our body's ready to have sex versus when we're economically ready for the consequences of sex, that's like a 2 decade difference. So
Wow.
saving
Yeah.
yourself for marriage, in 1950, not that big of an ask. Saving yourself for marriage in 2022 is a huge ask, but women will do this thing where they'll, I'm reformed, I'm a traditional conservative now. And they think that that's a selling point for men. Now, hopefully men are not getting fleeced by that. Like, I would hope they have the wherewithal to understand that, what we mean to say is that we like a man that, protects and provides for us. Like, I wish I was a traditional conservative. Some of my best friend, she's a traditional conservative, but unfortunately I found Jesus a little bit later in life. So I tried to say that I am a conventional woman, conventional gender roles, because even liberal women, they'll have a baby and they'll stay home. And sometimes they go back into the workforce and sometimes they don't. Like, we have biological drives as women. So to say that, well, I want a man who protects and provides for me, like, that does not make you a traditional woman. A traditional woman is going to be chaste and have morals and values. And I'm not saying that you have to be Christian. I haven't met a traditional secular woman yet. I'm sure they're out there. So this is what he's trying to say, because traditionalism maximizes the male protector instinct for women. I mean, feminism does it too in its own way, but it's just another way for women to use men, like, oh, take care of me, I'm like a dainty lady. Men are just commodified these days. So that's what he's trying to say. And Lauren Southern, she gets a lot of accusations, I guess. Me and her, people call us trad thoughts.
Hmm.
I'm like, that's nice, guys. Thanks. But I understand,
It's the thought that counts, though.
yeah. Yes.
Arceon, do only betas date single moms? Ooh.
Um, I don't know, right? So that's a reproductive compromise. And if anything I say sounds like it's coming from Rolo Tomasi, it's because it is. And I like him. So
I think he's interesting. A
he
lot of
would
people
talk
hate him. I would love to talk to him. Yeah.
he would probably talk to you, like, real talk. You should. I'll tell
Is
him.
he hard to get? Do people have a hard time getting him on?
It depends if you pique his interest. A lot of women don't ask to talk to him, so he'd probably say yes. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow, the fact that he's hard to get makes me want him even more.
I know. He is the game. There you go.
Ah.
Mhm. But single mothers solve a reproductive problem, because if men could compete and get single and childless women, they probably would. But sometimes, like, they just can't. And I'm not saying that it always makes sense, but I've seen, stepfathers that are well cared for and catered to because the woman understands the sacrifice that he's making. And then I've seen stepfathers that are like dunked on, like, you will do. But it's kind of a cut to men, when they're financially provisioning for a kid that's not their own DNA. Like you're paying for another man's spawn. And it doesn't even matter if like, the father's involved and there's child support and co-parenting and all this other stuff. Because if you take mom out on a date and you stay in a relationship with her, at some point you're going to be footing some kind of bill for that kid. So I think that's what like people try to get at all the time is like a single mothers are not people's first choice. And that's true, but you can tell that from the name single mother. It's someone's second choice. But life is not black and white. Like love is weird. Love is so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you
Because
fall in
the
love
same
with
could
who you
be
want to fall in love
true of
with.
the
Mhm,
reverse. Like, I definitely contribute financially to who
mhm,
I guess who will be my stepson. And since
mhm,
now for like 7 years, I felt like I've been financially contributing, but I've
mhm,
never seen it like I guess I've never seen it that way that like dating a single dad was like lesser than
mhm.
dating a guy with no kids.
Oh, well, that's different, right? Because like that's what I'm saying, like, men and women are different. Like, it's a good thing if
Yeah.
a guy is a single father for some women who, like, don't wanna pursue single and childless men for, like, various reasons, but he
Because
proved that he
'cause they're stand-up comedians. Yeah. I
Red
was like, "I think
flag,
I'm
red
done. I think I'm
flags.
done with this." Yeah. I was like,
Mhm,
"I'm good."
mhm, mhm,
True, true. And again, like, everybody's different.
mhm.
I think I wanna make sure I didn't miss any little chit chats. I think I got them all. Wow, this was so
Great.
interesting, Allie. I'm such a big fan of you. I love your videos.
Mhm.
Love
Thank
your
you.
work.
I'm trying to find, like, your stand-up, and it's been actually very hard for me. Like, what's the best platform
I
to find it?
I really should put out more clips of my stand-up. I have an album out right now, but it's just audio. It wasn't a special, it was just audio.
Mhm.
And that's on Amazon and iTunes, but I really do need to post some more stand-up clips.
Yeah, because 'cause I've been trying my favorite one, though, was, the Greta Thunberg.
Oh, yes, she's fun. She's
That's
fun to
great.
parody.
Mhm.
I really am inspired by unstable women. They
That
make me
poor
wanna
kid.
buy more wigs.
Mhm.
Yeah. Allie, where can people see your stuff other than on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter at Real Femme Sapien?
Oh gosh, well, I mean, you named them all. Yeah, it's gonna be YouTube and Instagram, but if you need a single coaching session, you can, fill out that form, the Let's Talk button over at realfemsapien.com. I only have 1 session with men, and then after that, I don't just don't wanna see you again because that makes me a buffer, but I'm happy to serve as, like, a one-stop shop for something, right? But,
Oh.
oh,
You
no,
help men too. What do men need help with in your experience?
hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my camera stopped, so we're just gonna we're just gonna I have
Wah,
to plug it
wah.
in real quick. But, men who wanna see me, they can fill out that form, but typically, I just prefer to service women, you know?
Okay.
Yeah. It's gonna take me a
Okay.
second to fix my camera if you wanna pull me off.
Okay.
Okay.
What if another question from Arsian, what if the woman is a widow and she is willing to give her partner kids? I think that's fine.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not
just
the
give me a
expert.
second. Alright. That wasn't
Oh yeah, we definitely got to get Allie on Simpcast. That's my Sunday show, my Sunday all lady show. Faux show. Do, 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 do.
that was weird.
That was weird. Okay,
Very weird.
one more question from Arsian. What if the woman is a widow and she is willing to give her partner kids?
Oh, okay. So that's a little bit different. That was so I don't even know what happened. Wow, that's the first time it's happened. So if a woman is a widow and she's willing to give her partner kids, it's still a ding, right? It depends if she has children, because again, you're still going to be raising another man's children, like DNA, and so people don't like that. But for the most part, that's social proof. Like she was committed and there to the end, and so like she's at least a stable bet for maternity, as well as like being a wife. And if she's willing to give her partner kids, it's not about being willing to. It's like is she physically able to do that? So if she can, then yeah, I don't see any issues with that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's a fresh start.
Hmm.
All right, guys. Thank you so much to the chat for all your good comments and
Okay,
questions.
I have
Aly is
to go.
great. I would love to get you. She has to go. She has to scram.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
okay.
Would love to get you on a Simcast
Mhm.
sometime. And yeah, thank you so much. All right, her
Thanks, bye.
camera's crapping.
I don't know what happened. I have to figure it out. Bye.
Aw.